I am trying to explain mental health issues and stuff that comes up using a metaphor again. So, you know that sense that we get that we are stuck, that trappedness, and that other people don't understand or get what is going on for me, right? That kind of feeling we have, especially when you're going through a PTSD crisis, right? So the analogy that I would like to use today is a theme park, or let's use Disney World, right? So for so many of you, or so many people watching my videos, they had very traumatic childhoods. There was a lot of abuse and trauma and so forth, right? So it almost feels like you're in a horror house, right, of that Disney World. This is the theme, the ride that you were on or are on, or the house that you're trapped in, right? Because the difference so often for people is when they experience an emotion, it's like a ride. They hop on, they have that emotion, whether it's joy, sadness, anxiety, anger, but it's a ride. There's a start and there is a finish, right? Because it's quite interesting that so many people pay so much money in therapy, right, to deal and help them manage their anxiety. And on the flip side, there's people who pay money to go on rides that evoke that very same emotion. Do you get that? How crazy that is? In one sense, right? We try to figure out how can I manage that anxiety, and here are people who are paying to have that experience. And we think it's fun, it's entertainment. There's a different idea or concept around it. And I think the reason for that is when we're going to a theme park, when you're paying for this, right, you're hopping on the ride, you know it's going to take about a minute or so, right? They're very short, I don't even know how long, but there's a clear start and a clear finish, right, for that emotion. And for so many of people who had childhood trauma, there was never a clear start and finish of that traumatic experience. It was just one day after another where you really struggling to survive. There was just so much trauma. It was like the ride started, but it never really finished. Years, decades, right? Even people who were in domestic abusive relationships in adulthood, right? It's like that. There was a start, but then there was no finish. You couldn't get off it, right? That trapped feeling. I hope that kind of makes sense. But so many then we get onto this, right? And it's not just anxiety. That it's almost like you're in that horror castle with all these things. You know, when you get that sense around every corner, something bad is always happening to me. And I seriously had that belief. I was convinced that this is my life, right? Things always go wrong for me, right? There's always something bad, something horrible, something very hurtful happening every day, always, right? Because I was in this house. Somehow I was no longer on that ride going around and coming out the other end to go on a different kind of ride to have more fun and joy and stuff like that. Almost like I fell off the ride. And I'm stuck now in this house of horror, right? So when we say other people don't get my intensity of emotions, especially when I was going through crisis, right? It's not so much that they don't get the intensity of the emotions. What they don't get is, why don't you get onto another ride, right? There's all these other things available for them. Because they didn't fall off the wagon, right? Kind of thing, in a sense. So they can still see that their experiences and emotion doesn't last forever. But when you have a mental health diagnosis, when you had so much trauma and so much abuse happening, there is no longer that start and that finish. And this is something that took me many years, right? And a lot of therapy, a lot of reading books, a lot of doing courses, a lot of learning, trying to help myself and realize why I'm stuck, what I'm in there, how can I help myself again to actually get the courage and get back out of that house, of that horror, to actually start believing again that I can get out of this house, that this isn't my life. I don't have to spend the rest of my life in that house of horror, right? Where I in terms of our PTSD kind of thing, right? The house of horror where you just have constant nightmares, right? The flashbacks, that constantly being triggered, that exaggerated startle response, right? Where you jump and you just can't focus and concentrate on anything that is happening right now, because you always have these really bad things on your mind, right? And it's a very devastating, a very sad place to be. I just want you to know I was there too, right? I totally get that sense, that trappedness, and how I couldn't see an end to this because I fell off. But I also want you to know that it's totally within our capacity to learn to get back on and get out and have different experiences, right? Go into different rides, allowing ourselves to have joy, allowing ourselves to have pleasure, right? So many of you, I know, you're out there appreciating other people, giving other people gifts, making other people's experiences really good and beautiful, and give compliments and stuff. But on the flip side, you're not allowing yourself to have that. You're feeling guilty and ashamed for these kind of things, right? We're going on some very weird kind of rides. And at some point, we need to realize, I don't have to be on that ride, right? It's a choice. Every moment I have a choice in what kind of ride do I want to have right now? What kind of experiences do I want to have in this moment? And I know it sounds very flippant, and then when I was stuck in this house of horror, if anyone said that I have a choice, I would have had very angry, frustrated, irritated, agitated kind of thoughts and emotions towards you, right? Telling me that. But now that I'm kind of out of it, it kind of makes sense now. I realize, oh, okay. And it's almost like a muscle that I have to train again, and it's like it's not a once-off choice. I always thought it's like I'm gonna choose and then I'm out of that house. No, it's a choice now, and then I have to make that choice again like 30 seconds later, and 30 seconds, some days were more intense than others. Like sometimes I could be on another ride for a longer time, or I was more aware and present. What are my thoughts right now that fueling that experience, right? Our thoughts are very powerful, right? What are you thinking about yourself, right? Let's not even talk about anything else that happens outside of you. What kind of thoughts do you have about yourself? I used to think I'm just a piece of shit and a failure and a complete waste of time, waste of space, right? If that is the self-concept I have of me, how on earth can I feel joy with those kind of thoughts about myself? How could I feel love? How could I feel pleasure? How could I be happy? I want to become really mindful of all these kind of things that are going on, and realize that, like, from a science perspective, right, the thought is kind of the first thing that happens, and pretty much like this split second, it almost feels like the emotion comes at the same time as the thought. But from that thought and that emotion, they then determine what kind of choice we are making in what kind of action we take or not take. If we're not taking action, is a doing thing as well, right? So, and that in turn, the kind of identify the experience that you will have, right? The experience of a horror house, the experience of a cute kind of place, the experience of love, the ride of joy and fun, or if you are on this roller coaster that's really kind of more anxiety provoking, right? But it's an experience, and you realize again that emotions are there actually to enrich my life. I thought the emotions were there to destroy my life, right, for a long time. Like if you have a mental health condition, that it feels that way because the emotions feel just so intense. So yeah, it's debilitating, right? I don't know, I'm liking the words here. It's so early here. It's actually only 5 o'clock in the morning. But this just came through, this metaphor, and I thought I want to share that with you guys. And I just clicked record, and I want to, I'm hoping that kind of makes sense, what's going on. The more we can understand what's going on with our emotions, the more we can empower ourselves. Just like, oh yes, this is it. Here I am, right? I'm having the thoughts and those kind of emotions and those kind of actions. They create that experience of whatever ride I'm on. And at any point I have a choice. Oh, do I want to actually hop off? Do I want to get on a different ride? What kind of thoughts would I have to have to produce those kind of feelings, right? If it is joy, what kind of thoughts do I have to have about myself, my capacity to have joy? My thoughts about out there, what's ever happening out there in the world, right? What kind of thoughts do I have to have more joy? And what do I need to do to have that experience, to enrich in my life, to have different experiences, so I'm not just stuck in the horror house. And by the way, it might not be the horror house for you. Maybe it is real anxiety. You're stuck in a house of anxiety or anger or whatever it is, right? You can adapt that metaphor to whatever. But I'm hoping it kind of makes a little bit more sense, and it is helpful and useful for you. So I'll leave it at that. Bye.